Okay, so this part, I know your teachers have been working really hard to make sure that the expectations for remote learning are very clear. So what I'm about to say might sound a little repetitive, and you might be able to answer these questions without looking at these slides. But let's go ahead and go for it. First off is the idea of cameras. We really want to make sure that we're able to see you. It's such a significant part for everyone's mental health to be able to see each other and interact with each other as we go through this learning process. So we're going to ask that your cameras are on, and again, if you are uncomfortable with that, please let your teachers know, and they can hopefully work out a plan to help you grow more comfortable in having our cameras on during the learning experience. We'd also want to make sure that you're ready to learn. It's clear that you're not having your focus on anything else besides school, like a pet or possibly a video game. Making sure that your attention is put on the lesson at hand. Make sure that you're following those meets the routines and expectations. The expectation I would imagine is that you're keeping your microphones on mute unless unless there's a protocol for you to unmute. We want to make sure that we're avoiding distracting behaviors. You're not just, like I said, bringing a pet into the class during a part of instruction would not be an appropriate decision. This is a big one. Is we want to make sure that you're not utilizing your cell phones during the day. First off, we want to make sure you're obviously not taking pictures. That does go against our technology agreement. You should not be taking pictures of those meets. There are significant privacy issues when you do that. The other part of this is texting. Just like during the school day, you should be having you in a school setting, you would have your cell phones in your locker, or they would be off to prevent texting during the day, because you really don't need to do that. That's the same here in a remote setting. So we really urge you to find another place for your phone, as really the technology that you need should be on your Chromebook and should be provided through those school-based apps. Obviously, we want to make sure you're using the chat function appropriately. You're using it to ask questions about the class. You're using it or provide answers, but not to distract from the learning that's happening. I know that we're having opportunities in which you can go into small groups for breakout rooms, and in the same way, you would have an expectation of really participating appropriately if you were in a group in school where you're in the same room as a teacher. I think that's the expectation here, that you're talking to each other, you're making sure that you're working at the task in hand in class. And then, of course, we want to make sure that you're attending any scheduled meetings or extra help that you have with the teacher. That's just part of being a responsible student, is making sure that you're upholding your end of appointments. If you make an appointment with a teacher, or your family does, it's your responsibility. You need to make sure that you show up on time. And if you're unable to, because things do happen, that you make sure you email that teacher and let them know why you won't be attending, and try to reschedule. Meanwhile, for hybrid expectations, again, this is going to be different from a traditional school day. We're expecting you in the same way we would in school, though, that when you enter a classroom, you're prepared at your desk, ready to learn, and making sure that you have your appropriate materials out. The tough part here is that we really just, for safety, we are going to ask that students remain seated at their desks to ensure that we're keeping that 6 feet of physical separation. You still have your mask on. You're maintaining that as well. And you are going to be provided your own instructional class materials. We really do not want to be sharing class materials again, for safety reasons. After a class, you are going to be asked to clean your desk with a district-approved wipe, and make sure that your desk is clean, as someone else will be using it in the next period. Another piece for hybrid expectations, we want to make sure that our transitions, our hallways, and our breaks are smooth and orderly. We are going to make sure that we're building it into the daily classroom routine as we're asking you for the majority of the day to be seated. We want to make sure that we're providing you with that time to blow off some of that steam, to make sure you're moving and get the blood pumping. You are going to be using specific designated bathrooms located throughout the building. We'll go over that a little bit more closer to hybrid of where you're going to be. And we're only one student from a classroom will be utilizing the bathroom at the time. We're really going to make sure that we have to follow those sign-out procedures for contact tracing, so that, again, all these safety measures are put in place to help protect you. We are going to have some pretty strict traffic patterns. You see in the pictures here, there are some blue tape on the floor. That means that you have to stay on the right side of the hallway as you're walking down to help you keep separation, to keep it a little more orderly. We are going to start off this year where you're going to see your teachers are going to be walking you from class to class. I know it does have a little bit of an elementary school vibe to it, but just due to the nature of getting used to these new routines, this new process, we need to make sure that there's more adult supervision than there typically has been during these times. The other part you'll see is we're going to be using some of our cafeterias as rotaries. If anyone's familiar with going to the Cape, you'll often travel around a rotary instead of having a stoplight or a stop sign. And that's what we'll do here. You basically just go to the right of the rotary as you move along in the hallway.